And it was good for a minute, and then made some really bad choices, and then I straightened up, and then I made some worse choices, and then I straightened up, and then I made some even worse choices that I couldn't even believe, and then I straightened up, and then I made some extremely awful, terrible, evil, unbelievable choices. You know, my testimony is this. I know what it's like to be a Christian and be in a jail cell. I know what it's like to be a Christian and be in the back of a police car more times than I can count. I know what it's like to be a Christian and have my mugshot on the 6 o'clock news. It was not attractive. It's not tweetable. I know what it's like to have my mugshot. I'm sorry, I know what it's like to stand in front of my church and have to apologize and say I'm sorry, a church that I was employed in. I know what it's like to have to stand in front of my family and confess everything. I know what it's like to have to sit in a circle of people who deal with addiction and say, I am one of you. Hi, my name is. I know what that's like as a Christian. I'm reminded of the story of the prodigal son. You know, the prodigal son, they thought like he just basically said the father was as good as dead, and he asked for everything, and he went off and just went and did terrible things. Amazingly awful, terrible things, and used his entire inheritance. He said, Father, you are dead to me. Give me what's owed to me after you die. And then he used all of it and blew it all on just terrible, awful things. Now, in this story, which one of those sins did the son commit where the father disowned him? Which one was it? Which sin was it that he did where the father said, that's it, that's enough, I'm done with you, you're out of here, I can't stand it anymore? Which sin was it? Which one was it? Which sin was it where the father was like, that's it, you've done too much, that was really bad, everything else was petty and minor, and I can put up with the petty and minor, but this sin is too egregious, this is too evil, this is too bad, you're no longer worthy to be called my son, you're out of here. Which sin was it? None of them, yes, but when the prodigal son turned around to come home, what did he do? He had his speech prepared, he was ready to go, and he said he was feeling really bad. He hit rock bottom, and I know exactly what rock bottom looks like, feels like. It's awful, but it was also the best day of my life because it was the day that I turned around. I don't know if anybody knows what I'm talking about, but as I'm turning around and as I'm here in that moment, you know, just like the prodigal son, he's preparing this speech, and he's saying, I've sinned against, Father, I've sinned against heaven, I've sinned against you, and I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. That's what the son said. Is that what the father said? No. Is that what the son said? Yes. Is that what the son thinks? Yes. And that's what we think too. Let me just let you in on a little secret. People who don't know Jesus, they hear the gospel and it's really good news. It's great news. They hear the gospel and it's really good news. And they give their life to him and he turns their life around. For those of us that are Christians and we make mistakes, we no longer believe it. And we go to this little corner of isolation because we're afraid to tell anybody what's happened. Why? Because we're Christians. We're afraid if we tell somebody else, they're going to know, oh, that's a Christian and you did this. Oh, so you're not real. You're just a hypocrite. We're afraid of that, right? We don't want to tell anybody about it. We're afraid somebody's going to judge us, so we just keep it to ourselves, don't we? And we just sit there and try it on our own, and we're just like, okay, I'm just going to try really hard. Oh, failed. I'm going to really try hard this time. Oh, failed. All right, I just got to pull up myself by my bootstraps. I can do this. I can do this. Nope, I can't. Failed. And then we don't tell anybody. We sit there in isolation until the secrets pile up and they pile up and they pile up and the sins pile up and they pile up and they pile up until finally rock bottom happens. And then the secret's out. And everybody knows, right? And you're coming home because you got nowhere else to go. Father, I've sinned against you in heaven, and I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. That son tops the hill. The father spots him from far off. What does the father do? He takes off sprinting, running as fast as he can. He's like, oh my gosh, he's running at me. He's going to hurt me. He's out to get me. He's going to slay me. He's going to punish me. He's going to wipe me off the face of this earth. He's going to actually finally give me what I deserve. He's running at me. This is terrifying. I've got to get this speech right. I've got to make sure that I say it just the exact right way, or God's going to strike me down. And he's getting closer. He can hear me. Okay, hey, Father, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I've sinned against heaven. I've sinned against you. And I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. The father gets there and just puts his hand over his mouth, wraps him up in his arms, and says, my son, who is dead, is now alive. You see, some people know God. They give their life to Jesus. He turns their life around. Some people know God as Savior, as Deliverer. But I know God as faithful Father. I know God that has never left me. I wrote a song that's his words to me. And in this song he says, there's not a day I haven't loved you. Not a single day. And those words are for you tonight. There's not a day he hasn't loved you. From your first day to your worst day to this day. My father passed away a couple weeks ago. And I took my kids, his grandkids, to see him one of the last few days, and he barely had any strength. He was dying, and he opened his eyes for like a minute and a half, and smiled at them, and that was all the strength he had that day. A couple days later, I drove down to see him one more time, and I was just praying, God, just give me one more interaction. Just give me one more interaction with him, please. I just need one more interaction. And I got there, and I started talking to him, and he opened his eyes. You could tell he was a little groggy. I started just talking to him. I said, Daddy, I'm going to sing you some songs. And I sung him some songs that I knew that he would like. He was a Southern gospel guy because I'm not from around here. All right? And I sung him this song. You may know this song. It's my dad was dying of Parkinson's disease, and so he, had lost all of his ability to move and take care of himself and all these kinds of things. And I knew that he was getting ready to be in the arms of Jesus, and I knew that God was getting ready to ultimately heal him. And this is one of his favorite songs, and so I was just basically preparing him for what was about to happen. So I sang him this song. I said, He touched me, oh, he touched me. If you know it, sing with me. And oh, the joy that floods my soul. Something happened, and now I know he touched me and made me whole. I sang him another song, Jesus, there's just something about that name. And then I sang him this other song. I said, Daddy, this is a song I wrote about my story. You see, my story is the same as my dad's story. Sins of the father and the sins of the son kind of thing, And I forgive him for all of that. I really do. I don't hold any of that against him. Hopefully you'll forgive me for my sins too. I wanted to sing this to him because I knew my story was his story. And I wanted to remind him that there's not a day that God didn't love him either. And so, if you find yourself in a similar testimony as mine, you see, I used to think my testimony was unique, but now I've just found out there's a lot of people that had the same one. We're all just afraid to talk about it out loud. We're all just afraid to tell each other. We're Christians out here silently, privately struggling with addiction and sin, and we just don't want to tell anybody. And maybe tonight, after tonight, you're going to have some courage and some bravery and some boldness to go and finally get help like I did. It took rock bottom for me to get help. Please don't wait until that long, all right? And listen, God loves you right now just as you are. There's not a single day that he hasn't loved you. This is God's words to me, God's words to my dad, God's words to you tonight, all right? Are you ready? This song is called For the Life of Me. You poured out to fight your way upstream, lost in the worst kind of lonely, with 1,000 fake friends on the screen, and mistakes they just keep piling up, while the mirror is your worst enemy. But there's not a day I haven't loved you. For the life of me. So bring me all your pain, and every night that you weep, and I will bury them all. For the life of me, in need fall asleep, I will wake you up again for the life of me. There's not a day I haven't loved you, not a day I haven't loved you. Your name is written on my hands. Not a day I haven't loved you, not a day I haven't loved you. Your name is written on my hands. So bring me all your pain and every night that you weep, and I will bury them all for the life of me. And even when death comes and makes you fall